This lab is studying the Drainage Act, which was passed in 1949 and hasn't been amended since. So it seems like this. Now, just to give some legal background, in law, which you'll be studying next semester, there are two types in Canada. There is common law and statute law. Statute law is the type that is written down numerically, so it has numbered rules that we have to follow. So the Environmental Protection Act would be an example of that. The British common law is older than the statute law, and it originates from days when the king would travel from town to town and hear different trials as he went and decide what the verdict would be. And there would be, he would sit on a bench which would be carried along with him, which became known as the King's Bench, which we have carried down in tradition. And people recorded his decisions, and that enabled him to make sure that there was consistency from town to town, so that there was never any arbitrary decision. And one of the aspects of common law was that water flows naturally and should be permitted thus to flow. So in other words, water courses do flow naturally, and they should be allowed to continue to do so. And a natural water course is defined as a stream of water which flows along a defined channel with beds and banks, and a flow for a sufficient time to give a substantial existence. And because it's a permanent channel, this will include streams that dry up periodically. So along with the definition of a natural water course came along a definition of a riparian owner, and that is a person whose land is in contact with the stream of water. And they are in turn entitled to have that water pass by their land in its natural state. And they are entitled also to use it for natural or domestic purposes, in other words, drinking water. And they also have the right to obtain water power from it. And if they're going to build a dam, they have to get approval from the Lieutenant Governor. And they are also bound to submit to floods of natural causes. Now, if you happen to be watching American media, you will come across situations where this is not the same. The rights of the riparian owner are known as riparian rights. Riparian rights do not exist in the U.S. Their legal system evolved a little differently than ours did. So in other words, if a stream flows through Texas and an owner in Texas wants to block that flow and dam it and have it to their own use, they can. And it doesn't matter to the person downstream. Whereas if someone does this in Canada, they can't do it. They have to make amends to the person downstream. And they can drain lands into the natural stream, provided that it's within the drainage basin. And this actually has been backed up into the Ontario Water Resources Act. And as I just mentioned, they're liable to upstream and downstream owners if artificial amendments are made to the stream which affect the flow negatively. So for example, here someone's put in a rock pile dam. It's going to affect the water quality of those downstream temporarily. It's also going to affect the water levels of those upstream. They're going to have to make it right somehow. So it's the duty of anyone who interferes with the course of a natural stream to see that the works that they've substituted for the channel provided by nature are adequate to carry. In other words, they have to accommodate everything, including flood levels. But riparian rights only deal with permanent stream channels. They don't deal with the drainage of non-permanent channels. So for example, this does not apply to water draining off of lands, only to permanent channels. So if you don't have a defined water course, there are no riparian rights. So there's no right of drainage, and an owner of the lower land may, at their own choice, either allow water from the higher land to flow over it or dam it. This comes into effect when we are dealing with the drainage of lands, especially lands for agricultural use or lands for development. In order to try and control this, actually it doesn't even control it, in order to aid the ability to drain land, the Drainage Act was passed. So it now provides a legal procedure by which an area requiring drainage, requiring an outlet, can be constructed, and it has a legal framework for that. This facilitates the drainage of an agricultural property, and it was deemed to be encouraging agriculture when the law was passed in 1949. And if you think back to that time period, it was just after the Second World War. Canada was trying to scrape together an economy. We were an agricultural based society, so these people were coming home from the war. Not all of them could find jobs in industry, so get them back on the land where they could get a livelihood. This is a diagram of an agricultural drain.